Hey there, everybody. How's it going? I'm Kenny Stahl, and I would like to talk to you for a bit about identity. I want to ask you the question, what defines who you are? Have you ever just thought about that? Have you ever asked yourself the question, who am I? It's kind of a deep question. It's a question that maybe some of us can't answer. Or maybe somebody's told you, I'm sure they have, where somebody said, hey, you need to just be yourself. Well, what does that mean to just be yourself? I mean, you are yourself, but is there a way you can be yourself even more? Like, aren't you already just being yourself at this moment? Well, I think obviously these things mean something, so I want to kind of get to the bottom of that. I want to understand identity better. I want to understand, who I am. I feel like I have been trying to learn who I am, or I've been trying to discover who I am. You'll hear people say that they're trying to find themselves. Well, to be honest with you, I feel like I have been on a journey of self-discovery in my life. I feel like, and I'll break down what that means, because I think that all young people, teenagers especially, young people are trying to figure out their place in the world. They're trying to figure out what to do with their lives. What should I do? How should I live my life? They're trying to understand what they care about the most. You know, there's a lot of things that make all of us as human beings similar to each other. You and I have a lot in common just by the fact that we're humans. We share similar emotions. We probably like similar things. I mean, we probably deal with similar circumstances, even if we live in different countries. I mean, the human experience for a lot of people is similar. Now, one way that we oftentimes hear of people defining themselves is by labels that we've become really familiar with, such as race, gender, religion, sexual orientation. I mean, all these different categories, we all belong to a mixture of these things. But that doesn't really define who we are. It can. If you identify very, very strongly, for example, with a particular race or ethnicity, then you might, that might influence what you do in life, your path that you take, especially if you're a part of a group that's been, discriminated against. You're, of course, going to have that as like a major part of your identity, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, the way that we identify ourselves with these labels, the only reason why those are important is if it means something to you. See, my racial identity means nothing to me. So I cannot relate to having, I can't relate to caring about race because number one, I'm mixed race and I get confused about it. So I don't really identify with any race specifically, it just, it's something that I guess I can't really get into this right now. That's not, maybe this is for a different video, my own confusion about this. But, what these different things mean to us is what matters the most, how we label ourselves. So the way that we differentiate ourselves from other people. In other words, what is it that makes me, me? What is it that makes you, you? And how are we as individuals unique or different from others? I think that that's actually like the goal of, this idea of finding yourself or asking the question, who am I? The goal is to discover what makes you different. What makes me different than somebody else? Like, I want to know, like, do I stand out in any way? So there are a lot of things that we have in common with people, including some of these labels like race and gender. But the thing that you have, the thing that I have, the thing that we all have as individuals that's different from everybody else is basically our entire life experience. It's what you've been through in life. It's your life story. We all have our own thoughts, beliefs, values, situations in life that might be unique to us, things that happen to us, our values, our accomplishments. I mean, all of this stuff is what makes you, your consciousness, your brain, your experience, that is you. Like, you are you. Like, you are not everybody else. You are, I hate to say this because it sounds so awful. Like, it's just a thing I don't like. You're special. I didn't want to say that. I don't know why. That was very hard for me to say, that you're special. In many ways, you're not special. In many ways, you're just another human being just like everybody else. But again, that one part, your personal experience, what you know, what you've been through, what you've done, your story, your life story is yours and nobody else's, and I guarantee you that it's unique. So that's what makes you stand out from others. That's what makes you different from others. In science, the way that we scientifically define things or categorize things, it's oftentimes in relationship to other things. So comparison is the way that we identify things, the way that we define things. What makes this different than that thing? So a lot of times people, as they're trying to kind of learn who they are, discover who they are, or form some sort of identity, what people do is we look to other people and we compare ourselves to them. And this is something that, it's inevitable. It's inevitable to see other people, see what they're doing, see how their lives are, and to judge them or to compare ourselves to them. But I really worry because I see a lot of people, running into major self-esteem issues and really having this sense of worthlessness, feeling like, like that is a huge part of our identities, because there's not only, the part of us that when we identify with, our race or religion or whatever, but there's also the part of us that socially, that we identify with how we rank, compared to other people. So, I've struggled with my own self-esteem issues. I've, made videos talking about it. And I never realized just how common this was. I didn't realize, that everybody, or a lot of people, I should say, have, insecurities and self-esteem issues and that sort of stuff. But this stuff plays a very big role in our lives, because if you have a low self-esteem, if you think of yourself as having little or no self-worth, then that could, impact what you choose to do. It could make you less likely to try hard in life. It could, it could really deplete your motivation, and that's gonna, the less motivation you have, the less stuff you get done, your life doesn't improve. It's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, oh, I'm no good, and then not doing anything to get better. So it reinforces the idea that you're not any good. Like, imagine like having no experience with romantic relationships and defining yourself. I'm using this as an example, right? How do we define ourselves? Well, if you have no experience in something and you define yourself as being, bad at something. So if somebody was to say, oh, I'm bad at relationships, or I have no relationship experience, or I'm no good at relationships, how does that definition, how does the way that person views themselves which could be related to low self-esteem. How would a person who thinks they're not good at relationships, how would that identity impact their decision making? They might not be looking for anybody. They might not try to go out on dates. They might try not to flirt with anybody. They might sit at home all day saying, I'm not good at relationships, and they just don't do anything. They don't try to even get in one. That's how our self-esteem, that's how our identity influences us. So I just wanted to bring that up because I want you to think about your identity. I want you to think about how you think about yourself, what you think defines you. I want you to think about your self-esteem, if you think about yourself in a negative way. And I want you to really be aware, right? This is self-awareness. I want you to be aware of how those thoughts, how those definitions that you have of yourself, how those impact your motivation to do things, how that impacts your decisions, what habits you participate in. I want you to think about that because this is why I'm bringing this whole conversation up. This is why I'm choosing to discuss this. This is why I'm making a video about this. I believe that how we identify ourselves plays a huge role in what we do, in whether or not we try hard to make improvements. There's a lot that goes into how we define ourselves. A young person doesn't really have a lot of life experience, so they can't really feel good or bad about succeeding or failing because they probably haven't done a whole lot. I heard recently from somebody, I don't know who it was probably something online, somebody who talked about how young people versus older people, how they identify themselves. And the idea is that older people will identify themselves or define themselves more about, what they've done in life, their past experiences, their accomplishments, what they've been through. So they're sort of looking to the past. Whereas young people, teenagers, young adults, young people will define themselves by what they want to do, the future, right? Their passions, what they're interested in, because they haven't really done a lot of things yet, I should say. They're looking ahead. So there's a lot of young people who don't know what to think about themselves. They don't know what to think. So they're sort of, dealing with this question of who am I? It's usually young people that deal with that question the most. But a lot of times as we get older, if we have an idea of what we want to do in life, or if we have an idea of who we are, sometimes it doesn't work out. As throughout our life, we can have certain expectations that then don't line up with reality. We fail, things don't work out, unforeseen circumstances and obstacles that we face. So sometimes people will get discouraged. They will feel like a failure. So, once again, we're brought to this topic of self-esteem and self-worth. If you failed in life many times, and you then define yourself as a failure, that can impact you, what you do, how you choose to live your life from that point forward. So the question is, do you have to? Do you have to define yourself as a failure if you failed many times? You don't have to. You can incorporate failure into your life in a healthy way. But that's not what everybody does. Sometimes people take it too far. Think about it. There's probably lots of people who do not focus on their failures in life, do not identify as failures because they've failed many times. But then there's other people who fail once and just focus on that one failure, even though they've done a lot of other things well and they've succeeded at many things, but that one thing that they failed at, they might think of themselves as a failure. So, one of my goals is to just be very mindful of, the way that I think, what I believe, how I feel about myself. These are the kinds of things that I focus on. So this is why I talk about this stuff on my channel. I believe in self-awareness being very important. I believe in mindfulness being very important. Because there's a lot going on in our mental world, in our psychology. There's a lot going on. And if you can, get better at framing situations in a more positive way, in a more constructive way, then you're actually going to help yourself out a lot. This is why when people say be positive, most of us are not positive people, right? We're not just positive all the time. So when somebody says be positive, we say, oh, okay, yeah, shut up. But there's a reason why people say be positive. It's because you need that positivity, you need that optimism to keep you going, to get better, so you don't give up. It's so much easier to be negative. Negativity is the default mindset of people. It's so much easier to focus on what's going wrong in life, in the universe, in society, and in ourselves. It's so much easier to focus on what's not working than it is to really see any possibility of things to improve. It's very difficult to see, the good things in us, what has worked for us, what we've done well in life. Again, you can succeed at 10 different things, but one failure out of those 10 things, you just will focus on that one thing. So what we focus on is a big deal. And I think that's what identity is. I think that's when we think about, the question, who am I, right? Who are you? It's putting a spotlight on certain characteristics of ourselves. It's putting a spotlight on certain features of ourselves. So for you, that might be your race or your gender or your religion or your sexual orientation or all these, that might be very important to you. But you could also put a spotlight on other things. What's your job? What do you like? What are your values as a person? And I think that ultimately people are looking to take that idea of the self, right? Who am I? The self. I think what people are trying to do is take that self and improve it. Thus, we have self-improvement. People are trying to better themselves. People want to change. People want to take the things that they don't like about themselves and make them better. So we can all do that. We can focus on the things we don't like about ourselves and try to make them better. But at a certain point, there's not a lot you can do about certain things about yourself. So you should focus on what you're good at and just keep doing what you're good at. Follow your passions. Do what you want to do in life. Ultimately, my goal is I want to see people. I want to see you. I want to see everybody who watches my videos. I want to see you guys get better. I want to see you learn to love yourself more. I want to see you take care of yourself. I've struggled with this a lot in my life. Half the time, a lot of my problems are I'm really just working against myself. I'm not doing myself any favors by neglecting basic things in my life. So the moment I start focusing on the important things in my life, setting priorities, you know, actually taking care of my mental health, physical health, financial well-being, relationships, I start focusing on the things that are really important, guess what? I start feeling better. I start loving myself more. So self-care is really important. But you got to know who you are. So, do you know who you are? Take a minute to think about it. What are your beliefs? What are your values? What have you accomplished in life? Who we are is as much of who we are right now as it is who we want to be in the future. The idea of the self, the idea of who we are, it's a combination of the past, the present, and the future. It's all these things. Past, present, future. So, that's what our identity is. So, how do you choose to define yourself? If you would like to, you can leave a comment and tell me this. Share it with everybody. How do you define yourself? But just in general, I would like to know what you think about this. What do you think about the concept of identity? Who are you? What does it mean to be yourself? Just in general, do you think that self-esteem influences how you behave, what you do, what you don't do? Does it decrease motivation? Where does it come from? How do you start feeling better about yourself? These are all things I want you to think about. My goal, as I hope your goal is and everybody else's on this channel, should be to get better, to be a healthier person, mentally for sure, to be more mindful, be more self-aware, to understand yourself more so you can improve. And so eventually you can influence not only your own life, but also other people's lives. You can make an impact in society. You can make everything better. That's my vision, is to help. My vision is really, first and foremost, to take care of myself more. And then secondly, to try to influence and make an impact on things outside of myself. So, thank you guys for watching this video. If you'd like to see more of my videos, subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up, please, if you liked it. And, yeah, so this is a longer video, but I feel good about it. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.